smoke, the flames, and the frightened faces. All in a firefighter's line of duty. But Chief William Hitchcock remembers the night it wasn't the fire that almost stopped him.
Oh, I was scared to death.
But the fire escape that broke underneath him.
Where the railing just came away from the building.
And our investigation found across Massachusetts more unsafe fire escapes. Rusty, deteriorating, crumbling, broken. And what state officials didn't know, the system they set up to keep fire escapes safe is also falling apart.
The potential ramifications are disastrous.
So let's look at this one. This expert ironworker is licensed to build, maintain, and inspect fire escapes. So then over here? For months, we examined dozens of them with alarming results. Looking at this today, would this pass inspection?
No.
In dormitories, at theaters, at homes, and apartment buildings. Rust is actually eating away the metal of the fire escape.
Correct.
And the bottom line?
It'll get weak and then eventually it'll fall.
This one has rotted connections. This one missing bolts, twisted metal. Would the stairs come down?
No, never come down.
This one a broken tread. So how dangerous is it for the people inside this building?
This fire escape is definitely going to put somebody either in the hospital or it's going to put somebody in a cemetery.
Fire escapes are so critical. The state building code requires they be certified for structural adequacy and safety every 5 years. But our investigation found that safeguard is simply being ignored. Here's proof. We chose fire escapes at random in Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, Worcester, and here in Quincy. We checked building department files, but there's no fire escape certification.
Not in this file.
To see if building owners had submitted their mandatory inspection reports. There's no certification in this one either.
Right.
Bottom line, not one we checked in Quincy had been certified as safe. And the director of inspectional services admitted because of staffing shortages, the city has no idea how many other fire escape owners are breaking the rules. And as a result, do you know how many fire escapes in your city are safe or not?
Well, I don't know.
In Worcester, not one we checked was certified. In Somerville,
No.
4 more fire escapes.
Did it fall through the cracks? Yeah.
Not one up-to-date certification. And again, no system for keeping track. How can they get away with that?
I guess that the shortest answer of all is because we don't have the resources to sit here and follow up on these things.
If structural deficiencies are reported, local building inspectors can actually evacuate residents until repairs are made. Would you talk to us on camera about this? No? But when we surveyed 24 more communities, most admitted they had no idea how many fire escapes were certified. In Taunton, inspectors told us they haven't seen a certification in 25 years. Northampton officials said it's a cold day in hell when that happens. In Cambridge, too, not one of our test buildings was certified, and the official in charge would not come out to discuss it. In Boston, where there are more than 8,000 fire escapes, again, according to inspectional services, not one we checked was certified. Officials know they are required to enforce the building code, but they admit they don't always know if owners are breaking the law. The building code is being ignored.
Right, but it's difficult to write a violation when you don't have knowledge of something like that.
But state officials say for a critical issue like this, communities should know. And they warn the Massachusetts building code is not optional. Does it worry you that these fire escapes are not being certified?
This is an important issue and should not be ignored.
That's because after the smoke and flames begin, it'll be too late to learn you've got no way out.
I can't stress it enough, Hank, that these things have to be maintained and someone's got to be watching.
As a result of our investigation, state officials will now issue an alert to local inspectors. Meanwhile, if there's a fire escape on your home or office, you can contact your local building department to make sure it's properly certified. In the newsroom, I'm Hank Philippi Ryan.
So the main thing that a lot of people are not aware of, that it's the law. Every 5 years, just like your elevator. Something was to happen on in your building on an elevator and was out of inspection, and somebody got hurt in your elevator. Who's the liability? Who's going to pay that liability? Insurance or the owner of the building? So fire escapes are the same way. By law, every 5 years you must inspect the fire escape. So if you can imagine, if it's out of compliance and hasn't been inspected in a long time, and then all of a sudden somebody gets hurt on it, somebody going up it, trying to either just go back into their apartment or they fall down, trying to break into the apartment, or something happens, a fireman going up this, and anybody gets hurt, then can the insurance company sort of back out of it and say, hey, you know, is it in compliance? Is it certified? Has it been repaired? because they need somewhere to go to get the liability. But what happens if you haven't been, it's not in compliance and the stairs fall? So a lot of it is the liability. A lot of people don't know it's the law. It used to be 1028.3, now it's 101.3. And it says all exterior stairs, and I'll go into the code in a little bit, must be inspected. These are the people that are going to be using your fire escape. One of the laws they're trying to pass nationwide is to have all rent checks now collected through the fire escape by management companies and the landlords. No, that's just another way to sort of get the awareness up, is have you guys, because they're going to paste it on the outside of the window, all rent checks from now on. So, but I don't know if that law is going to go anywhere.
Is that law specifically about Massachusetts?
Yeah, Massachusetts, 1028, 101.3, but every state has a code. It's either the building code has a fire code requirement, a building code requirement, and or a housing code requirement. All fire escapes must be maintained at all times, or have a period that they must be tested every year or every 5. So these are the guys that are going to need the fire escape. So let's take a look at what's been happening. A lot of times you may be going up and down these fire escapes, but the code in Massachusetts used to be every fire escape must be inspected and maintained at all times. It wasn't until in 1972 that this horrific accident occurred that all of a sudden now they said, you know what, we need to sort of look at it like we do elevators, and they made the 5-year rule come to play. But throughout the country, they wait for a tragic accident, and this happened on Marlborough Street in Cambridge, in Boston. And this is the Pulitzer Prize winning photograph that basically changed the code here in Massachusetts. So a lot of times either a fireman has to fall, somebody has to fall. It's never a landlord that falls to the ground, because then there'd be no news to speak about when landlords fall through fire escape. But whenever it's a tenant, a fireman, one of your own guys, you've got a lot of problems, because if even your maintenance guys going out and taking branches off the fire escape, doing anything, people going in because they left their keys, and they're going into the building through the fire escape, and they fall through it, you're going to get, these things can occur. Here's the code. In every state, the code is very similar. All exterior bridges, steel or wooden stairways. Have we mentioned fire escapes yet?
No.
So everything that's outside your building that's made as, it's an egress or a balcony, steel or wooden, must be inspected under a code. So this is the Mass code. So if you're from another state, there is a code that says all exterior steel or wooden stairs must be examined and tested. This is our code. And then it says fire escapes and egress balconies shall be examined every 5 years by a registered professional engineer or a qualified, somebody qualified and acceptable building official, and a confidence test must be sent in. Okay, so let's take a look at what is the types of thing we do. So if you want to write this down, on YouTube, we have a channel called Fire Escape Academy. We have about 400 videos over there, and that's all the classes. This class we teach is 30 minutes, but I teach a 3-hour course, and I teach a 6-hour continuing education course. So if any of you need any continuing education course, we usually teach a free online course or on-site course to some of your property management groups if you need continuing education. But we put it online for free. So like we're doing today, we're going to record this. It'll be online for free in case you want to go back. But a lot of our seminars are online for free on the Fire Escape Academy. A lot of our training classes are online for free, and that way you can just go there. And if you're one of your property managers, one of your facilities managers who wants to know what to look for, have them go to one of our classes. But this is one of our typical classes. This class is actually in Chinatown. This is us over here. We're teaching this class again next week in Chinatown for the housing authorities here in Massachusetts. Just yesterday we were out in Northampton teaching the Association of Building Officials. Last week we were in Taunton teaching the Southeastern Massachusetts building officials. We teach this nationwide. We teach it in Seattle, Chicago. So a lot of the videos you're going to see on the Fire Escape Academy is us all over the country teaching this very same course. So this is the gunfire one that I'm doing here. So this is live load testing. This is what's happening at every one of your buildings as we speak. So now, live load testing can happen one of two ways. The fire escape has been certified, and these people are doing these things, which you keep telling them not to. Or your fire escape is not certified, and these people are doing all these things. And what are they doing? Well, they're sleeping on the outside. This is an old shot I like to use when, back in the day when there was no AC, everybody slept out in the fire escape. People go out and look at parades off your fire escape. Whenever there's anything going on, all the students, all the people just come out on this fire escape, which is not supposed to be loaded or supposed to be in any use, and pieces from the fire escape fall down. You've got fire departments that come in there and remove people and babies and children, and God forbid this fire escape gives way while they're saving the kid. So they save the kid only to have to drop the kid through the fire escape. You've got huge problems. And every now and then, even the workers who work on fire escapes will fall to their death. This is an example of some of the work that we do. One of our guys, his dad out of Chicago fell 7 stories while doing the fire escape exactly like that. So these things will hurt anybody and everybody, never the landlords though. We very rarely catch landlords on fire escapes. But this new law that we're trying to pass so that people can check on the outside of the windows. And again, the guys that usually use it are these guys right here, the firemen. That's what they're there for. Fire escapes are made for self-evacuation. You're not supposed to be helping anybody. Fire escape is there. It's the second means of egress. We do call it the bachelor child of egress though. It's out of sight, out of mind. You don't give it any paint. You don't give it any maintenance. So this is what happens. 70 years, 75 years. If you look at your fire escape outside and you got original square head bolts on it, it's 50 to 75 years old. If it's got rivets on it, it's 75 to 100 years old. And the only thing they've been throwing on it is paint. Because if you look at your fire escape and you see no new hex head bolts, that fire escape has been fixed with nothing but a paint job for 75 plus years. If you don't see one shiny new bolt on your fire escape, it's impossible to have anything outside lasting that long. And that's the first signal that a building inspector is going to look for. He's looking for some shiny new bolts. You got no shiny new bolts and a fire escape is nice and shiny black, you still got a violation because you got no evidence of maintenance. So whether you're an inspector or whether you're somebody, you have your own home, you have your own building, the first thing is the law is very clear. It must be structurally sound and must be kept painted. So is the fire escape painted or is it not painted? And does it have more paint than rust or more rust than paint? So I can just look at this fire escape and say that I have evidence right now that there's more rust than paint on this fire escape. So immediately, if you were to call an inspector out here, the law doesn't allow him to pass this fire escape simply because it has more rust than paint. And structural means that if the fire escape is 50 to 75 years old, when any inspector is looking at it, he's got to see some evidence of maintenance. And maintenance means that I have to see a change in bolts, I have to see a change in rivets, I have to see some new hardware. Because when I go up to a fire escape, I see nothing but original hardware. That hardware is 50 to 75 years old. It's been out in the weather 50 to 75 years, and it's just impossible for not one of those rivets, one of those bolts to be changed in 50 to 75 years. And whenever that occurs, what I have is a fire escape that somebody's been constantly painting, but they've never done anything structurally to it. So now, that makes the entire fire escape pretty much suspect. So now I have to be careful as to what I'm looking at to make sure that the structural now, on especially the major structural connections, are in good order. Thank you for watching our video. Please call us today at 800-649-3333 to discuss your fire escape issue with a live inspector or schedule an inspection in your area today. Cross over and go and visit and see neighbors. People have been taking photos on fire escapes with weddings, and people and college students hang on fire escapes all the time, primarily to go have a smoke on non-smoking buildings. Here's a great one. This is a condo that, there was 5 condos in this complex. There's a fire escape there, there's a fire escape here, and I'm on a fire escape. The guy fixed his own roof prior to selling this off as condos. When this fell, there was a buyer and a real estate agent, a seller and a real estate agent, and a trustee checking the roof. And then they all came down in one swoop. Don't worry about it, nobody died, but everybody got to call their lawyer. Guess what happened to that condo? Right? Just now, can you buy and sell in that condo until this thing gets out of litigation? There's another one. 3 college students were up there watching the fireworks. The guy who fixed the building himself and then put it back on without properly attaching it, so it fell from there, hit the ground. Yes, they lag bolted it back in instead of through bolting it back in, and yes, that's the blood. So these things happen all the time. And then they threw the evidence in a field like 8 blocks away. And that's when we found
this looks like the lake for the staircase.
And here we are in a field filled with lawyers. Guess what we found? So that's just to show you the liability that you're looking for. Then they put it back on the building. This is in Boston, Beacon Hill. A girl, basically this is a 5-story building to a 4-story building. There's a nice beautiful roof deck there, and there's an apartment on this side. So what do you do when you're 25, 26 years old, you've been drinking all night, and you got a deck right outside your window? What do you do at 3 in the morning? You go there and drink some more with your girlfriend, and then when the phone rings, she says, I'll get it, and what does she do? Does she know how to do it? Does she have practice at this? No? So then she ends up falling from there 5 stories into the pit, and she died. So things like that, missing pieces. People unauthorized use of a fire escape. They still got them because missing pieces of the fire escape. She didn't die because she jumped off the building. She died because it was a missing piece and she fell off the building. There was nothing there to hold her in position, from making a stupid mistake. Firefighters, I got firefighters who are training on training towers. When I got there in Waltham, I started inspecting the fire escape and I started breaking all these treads. So even firefighters sometimes have issues. So the rust, it takes to grow rust, 25 years to grow a quarter inch of rust. Half inch of rust is 50 years. So you can imagine when you start looking at some of your connections, how long it's been neglected or not properly inspected. Here's 1 inch of rust. This is the Soldiers Field home up in Chelsea Hills. So if the war didn't get you, the fire escape will. So rust, you know, fire escapes are guaranteed to rust because you're not painting them. So you give it air and moisture. Trash trucks, moving trucks come into your alleyways and smash your fire escapes. This is a housing complex. This is from us just hammer testing some of the treads. They didn't look like this when we got there, but as soon as we hammer tested it, all the treads fell down. This is City Hall. Look at all the missing treads. This is your biggest worry. You got a lot of buildings that you have older. It's an older building, older structure, and a lot of times the damage is not inside. Not outside on the building. It's on the inside of the building where you can't see, right behind the veneer. And only, you see all this rusty tiers that you see here? That's a first indicator that there's something going on inside. So the veneer usually is separated from the inside masonry wall by like 3/4 of an inch. So it's been raining in the parapet wall for 25, 50 years ago. Well, that water went somewhere. It ate the inside of your steel. So the only way you can verify these fire escapes is load test them or certify them. Well, to certify them, you have to go in there and investigate these things, which a lot of guys aren't doing. So now the laws have changed, and that they're no longer accepting opinion tests. They want you to do a full-blown investigation to verify that these 50 to 75 year old fire escapes or greater will take a load test, or in lieu of a load test, you give them an investigation by a company that has eliminated all the unknowns, including what's behind the wall and including a lot of the welded connections. Who inspects fire escapes? All the states allow structural engineers and engineers of some sort to inspect fire escapes. They also, in some states, will allow an architect to inspect the fire escapes. Again, every one of these people must call your local official and verify their credentials with them. Some people think city officials inspect fire escapes. City officials don't inspect anything. They find violations, they'll write you a violation. But a city inspector walking through a fire escape is not an inspection. Even if he sees nothing, he can still write you a violation, simply because you haven't been keeping it painted. That's the rule. Must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So if you have a rusty fire escape that's solid, he's still going to give you a violation. Must be kept painted, must be structurally sound. That's the code. And then there's fire escape inspectors. In Massachusetts, there's a G3 license out of Boston, which allows you to inspect, and that license does go a little bit, depending on the city official. They'll allow you to inspect in New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island. We do a lot of these classes with fire officials just to make sure that we can inspect, and we have fire escape engineers and structural engineers on staff to inspect whatever the requirement is. Now, a lot of times you have to have credentials and you have to have inspection criteria. So every time we speak with an inspector, we have to send them a letter now that says, this is how we're going to inspect, and this is how we're going to repair it. Otherwise, a lot of guys have been fixing your fire escapes, and I'll guarantee every one of your fire escapes, 98.5% of everyone's fire escape in here has been repaired in the past with a can of Rust-Oleum and a caulking gun filled with silicone. But very few have been changing bolts, because it's so easy to hide a lot of repairs with just a bucket of paint and silicone. So whenever there's gaps, you just fill it with silicone. Wherever there's rust, just paint it. And then they take your check and they cash it, and in 5 years' time, you have the same problem again. For some reason, your fire escape can never pass the 5-year test. So it's important that whenever you get your fire escape repaired and you have a proper engineer oversight like this, that you get a 10-year warranty from all your vendors. A 10-year warranty that says that I get another violation, you'll come back and fix it for free, structurally. And the answer is going to be yes. If there's a paint, the paint is on you, because fire escapes on average have to be spot painted every 3 to 5 years, or every 5 to 7 years, because they're big rust buckets, that's all they are. So you have to just stay on top. That's your responsibility, to stay on top of the paint. But structurally, you got to get the warranties out of these guys that say, give me a 10-year warranty, otherwise I don't want your bit. That means they're going to go and dig all the rust out of the connections. Otherwise, that's where you fail all the time. You always fail out of the connection. So, these are the guidelines that we provide, and this is what you're basically dealing with again. You're trying to avoid your tenants, and that what happened here was this poor woman died, her niece survived the accident, and the fireman, with one hand, he saved himself. With one hand. This happened about 40 years ago. And there's just one more type of fire escape out there in case you want to use it that only certain buildings have. This is called a slidescape. This is a 12-story slidescape. So you can have all your tenants jump into this little, the kids will love it. This is in Elizabeth, New Jersey. This is a slidescape, 12 stories. And then you open up these little doors at every floor and you just jump down head first, tail first. It doesn't matter because you basically go down this heaping hole here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a video for you of a typical inspection. Now, this is we teach classes all the time, so we just finished a class up in Lowell, and I want you to watch this video, and then I'll open it up to questions. Cape Academy Inspector Training. Here we are in Lowell, Massachusetts. Bob, say your last name. Marsiglia. Italiano? See. We're here looking at, he's the building commissioner in the city of Lowell, and we have a fire escape right down by our feet. What's the greatest thing about this is we're going to be able to see all the rust and the connections. We're going to see all original hardware and squares. We're going to basically, he had a class today, and what we're basically looking at is a fire escape that no more paint is on it. So this is a perfect one because I can get my nose right into it. And this is a perfect example of everything that can go wrong with a fire escape. Let's talk about this one. And then we're going to go look at these other ones and a big monster that's on the back. So this may be a 10 to 15 minute video, but what is on here works there. So let's take a look. More paint and rust or more rust and paint? So that's all you need. Let's say they knew you were coming, Bob, and they painted this thing 100%. What are you looking for next?
The original hardware.
Original hardware. So let's show people what original hardware is. This is a square bolt. Square bolts. Square bolts. And some of these, so now let's stay underneath here before we get on that side, Bob. How about grating? Any popped grating of the spacers?
Yeah, the spacers are missing.
So what that means is when a fireman or a person steps and your leg goes through that, you get locked. You can't save yourself because now you're trapped with a bear trap. How about rusty tiers? Any rusty tiers indicating that water's getting into the connection?
Yeah, right there in front of you.
How about cement blowout into the back?
Yeah, you can see that too.
See cement blowout. Okay, let's take a look. Any damage from a truck or anything? Any bends on this fire escape?
So
Okay.
it looks like that might have been hit.
Got hit. Let's take a look at is it square heads or rivets on the supports? Are those original or they've been switched out in the past 50 to 75 years?
No, the original.
Original. To let this fire escape rust this much, how many years? To get 100% of your paint off your fire escape?
25 at least.
At least 25. Is there any paint that you can still see left? But even though there's no more paint on this, does this thing, which is older than 1978, have lead still in it?
Yes.
So it still has lead. Let's look at all the rust in between the connections. All this rust. Let's look at your treads. Missing spacers?
Yes.
And let's look over here underneath. Better before you climb up above. If I had my hammer, I'd do a hammer test. Any rust in any of the connections?
Rust in all of them.
Rust in all of them. The bulge. You can see all the bulges, right?
Yeah.
Is there any of them that if you were looking up straight up, can you see the sky if you look straight up on some of these? You look over here. You see that one right there? Can you look straight up?
Yeah.
How about this one over here? See all the rust? Any of these bolts that are holding as best they can, any of them totally gone? Are they all suspect in your mind?
All suspect, yeah.
Would you allow any of these to be welded and remain in place? Because that's a typical repair.
This has on the top 1/4 inch gap.
Yep. Now let's see how it lands on the ground. Is this all rotting on the ground?
It's all rotted out on that side especially. The channel is completely rotted out.
So the channel is completely gone over there? Okay. So, and how much rust? 1/4 inch every 25 years. How long you got of rust there?
Well, that's 75 years of rust there.
75 years. All these treads are 1/4, 3/8, 1/2 inch. If I was to stomp along on these, you think some of these would give way? Some of them have been patched with some welded bars. This is a typical repair when these flats give out.
Yes.
Lots of bends and smashes. I'll go slowly up this fire escape. I won't go too far, but you got enough evidence here that this is a perfect candidate of how bad things get when you just leave it alone. Have your inspectors ever walked down these alleyways?
Yes.
And why didn't they write this one up?
Well, we haven't had the program yet. But we have.
Maybe they did and nobody paid attention. Maybe they didn't know what to look for. And if it ain't broke, why fix it? There's also other reasons too. It's just it's not the priority. People think these are great. They've always been great. That nobody's ever fell 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody fell 50 years ago. And they think that these things are indestructible, but now this is what I call a hidden time bomb. This is a grenade with a pin already pulled out of it. A fireman or somebody coming out of that top is going to fall down these stairs and get hurt or jammed or stuck.
Yeah.
So this is part of the 101.3. All exterior steel or wooden stairs.
Correct.
Okay? Is this an exterior steel or wooden stair?
It is.
Is there enough water falling on it?
There's plenty of water falling.
Got obstructions?
Yeah.
This is fairly new. This is 10, 15 years old.
Yeah.
Nailed together. Safe, solid, you think? Should we wiggle it a little bit? Okay? Does this need to be inspected on the 101.3?
It does.
So all exterior steel or wooden stairs need to be inspected. Need a permit to repair this?
Yes.
Renovator's license?
No paint on it.
No paint on it, but they can stain it. There's no paint. How about this one? All exterior steel or wooden stairs. What is this?
It's a steel bulkhead stair combination.
This is a stair. This is an egress. We're missing anything here?
Handrail.
Handrails are missing.
It's over 30 inches.
Let's take a look at that. There's water falling on it. These are all metal. Any bulging rails or this looks like an adaptation to a bulkhead plus a stair,
It is, yeah. That's
but it's
the
missing its
bulkhead.
rail. It's fairly 15 to 25 years old. You estimate?
yeah.
Does this need to be inspected and have a cert on this?
It does.
Okay, so because it's 101, all exterior steel wooden stairs. Now let's take a look at this one. Now this is going to happen a lot of times. You can't even get access.
Yeah.
So let's talk about access. This door right here, which has a lock, is illegal because now these people cannot egress. It's very simple. On the inside, there's a push bar.
Yeah.
That's all you do. So whenever you have these gates that do whatever this thing is doing here for the trucks, that must be able to be pushed out. So that's a simple modification to make that a crash bar door. And then if you mesh enough of this, you mesh this, then nobody can put their hand in and force the door open.
Right.
So that's a neat, but it's illegal to lock somebody in a cage. Now, let's talk about from down here, and I can't get any more closer, from down here, more paint and rust or more rust and paint on the entire fire escape?
It's about equal, I would guess, but
Right,
mostly
so-
paint, mostly rust.
Mostly rust, so it needs a paint job. Now, from down here, and I know you can't see to the 5th or 6th floor. You just need to look at the 1st floor. Any evidence of maintenance, any shiny hex head bolts in this 50 to 75-year-old structure?
No, I see a mix of square head and rivets.
Okay, square heads and rivets,
So it's 50 to 75
50 to
years
75 years old. No evidence of maintenance.
old. No evidence.
Is every connection on there suspect then?
Yes.
Any release arm on there that you can see that would let that
I
cantilever
can't-
drop 2 to 3 feet per second?
I can't see a release mechanism.
So you're not sure whether even the cantilever is balanced correctly?
Correct.
And you're looking into the cement into the walls. Anything that you want to share? Can you see any rusty tears and any of the cement going up?
Yeah, I see signs of spalling and rust
Okay.
at the
So
corners.
right from here, and what about the grading? Let's talk about the grading.
Yeah, you can see the spaces are rusted out.
Spaces are rusted out in a lot of the grading. So again, as an inspector from down below, and you start looking up, a lot of these buildings that are 50 to 75 years old have not seen a certification in at least 25 years. And it'd be great if they had a tag, and it'd be great if you can get out of this building in case there was a fire.
Yeah.
But here in this one little alleyway, we have a major egress system, and you talked about ACs in the windows, which is illegal, and you have units in in front of windows that people have to use to get out.
Well, they got the windows blocked off.
The windows are blocked off with the cages. Again, a lot of that was because of security issues, but that's not they have to resolve
They have
that.
doors that lead out to the,
And they have doors, but sometimes the windows are the only means for another apartment. The doors are from a hallway, but every now and then to satisfy that piece of the building, they use the window to get. That's why they put that little add-on. So don't think if all of a sudden there's a hallway door feeding it.
yeah.
There has to be a reason why they put that little half circle there. That half circle is to pick up that window to meet the means of egress inside, because that is the only second means of egress for that apartment is through the window, which is now blocked by ACs and units. So right from here, you have a fire escape. So right in this building, in this alleyway, and I don't think we have any more down here, you have what 101 covers. Wood, all exterior wood or steel, fire escapes, and this one is the best because all original hardware on this one. And this is a great one. Don't you think that it showed everything that could go wrong with a fire escape, it showed on this one. And this is what you use in training. And look at the staircase. See the the whole stringer, how it clips up there,
Yeah.
all original hardware. So sometimes it's not the treads that'll kill you, it's the whole staircase will let go and fall to the ground. So we're going to go look at some more fire escape Academy Inspector Training. We're here in Lowell with Bob, the Commissioner. And in this city, you touch a fire escape in the city, he wants a permit, he wants a renovator's license, he wants engineer oversight. Otherwise, this fire escape will not be allowed to be certified, or he wants a load test. Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training. If you have any questions, basically the law is very simple. You must have your fire escape inspected. There must be a certification, and that certification will basically get you out of hot water. What you want to do immediately, if you're not sure, just send out one email. Please provide me with a copy of your current certification on your fire escape for our records. As soon as you put out that email, and then you also state on it, or we can order one for you because it's required by the state to have your fire escape inspected. As soon as you send that out, you now put the burden on the owner to provide you with a certificate that he has, and if he doesn't have one, you told him you'd order one for him. And so in case anything happens, he doesn't come back and say, hey, you're supposed to be watching my building, you're supposed to know these things. How come you didn't go get order the certification? So send out a quick letter saying, hey, the Mass law in every state requires that the fire escapes be certified at least every 5 years. Can you provide me with a copy of your current certification? Okay? So I'll be hanging around here if anybody has any questions. Yes, sir.
2 questions. 1, aluminum fire escapes, are they against the law, or can you install those?
You can install them. The only problem is that aluminum melts at what degree? 1,000.
Yeah.
Iron melts at what degree? 3,000.
3,000.
As soon as a flame blows out of a window and hits underneath it, it's 2,000 to 4,000. So that's the only problem with aluminum. They have a lot of them down in New Bedford, Fall River.
Exactly. Second question. How are they getting insurance on these buildings with the fire escapes this way? How the hell are they getting it?
Very good question, but as soon as the insurance company finds out that you have a fire escape that has no certification on it and somebody gets hurt or gets killed on it, and there's a liability question that comes up and it's out of certification, guess who gets the bill? The insurance company or you?
Right, but how would they allow them to have insurance?
It's not one of their checklist items yet, but it will be in the very near future.
Because that would solve this whole problem.
Exactly. As soon as the insurance company sees one of our, next year we're actually starting with the insurance associations throughout the country, and they're going to, if they realize that they're insuring bad buildings, then you're going to be getting, and the insurance company will make you fix a fire escape within 30 days. So just be aware. Yes.
I assume you use bucket trucks, you don't send your men off these fire escapes?
For inspection?
For inspection?
No, we do it with a hammer test as we go out. The first visual is to see if it's not all blasted out. And we will stop an inspection if we feel it's unsafe for us.
Like that last one?
Right.
Really bad.
So we can inspect with binoculars, or we can inspect with zoom cameras whenever it gets that bad. Number 2 is when we go up a set of stairs, we have a 3-pound hammer. We do the ping pong test, and if it pings, it's solid. Even though it might have some connection rust, but if it pongs, that means something's bad and it'll actually drop. I was actually going to show you a quick one of a hammer test where the guy hits one side and it pings, but he hits the other side and it just drops. And that could be your maintenance guy going out to pick up whatever, debris off the fire escape, whatever. So do not let your maintenance guys go out, because we've had that. It was at NYU. A guy used to go out every day and pick up cigarette butts, because the kids used to go out to the fire escape to have the smokes and then throw the cigarette butts, and they would fall all over the fire escape. And his job was to go up and down the fire escape again. He fell through the fire escape. We had a case in New York City where a fireman went on a residential property, went to save a woman and a child, a 27-year-old guy. He went and fell through 3 treads. What made that case unique, as we got pulled in as an expert witness on it, was that the fireman sued the owner directly for negligence. Not as a work-related accident, he sued him for negligence because he hadn't inspected that fire escape in over 25 years. So his claim, and he won because they settled, was the fact that and it exposed the owner. It said, hey, I didn't fall because of a work-related injury. I fell because you never maintained this thing, and this thing was waiting for me, and it caught me. And they settled quickly out of court when we did the investigation on that case. Any other questions? I'll stay here as long as you guys want. So whether you're an inspector or whether you're somebody, you have your own home, you have your own building, the first thing is the law is very clear. It must be structurally sound and must be kept painted. So is the fire escape painted, or is it not painted? And does it have more paint than rust or more rust than paint? So I can just look at this fire escape and say that I have evidence right now that there's more rust than paint on this fire escape. So immediately if you were to call an inspector out here, the law doesn't allow him to pass this fire escape simply because it has more rust than paint. And structural means that if the fire escape is 50 to 75 years old, when any inspector is looking at it, he's got to see some evidence of maintenance. And maintenance means that I have to see a change in bolts, I have to see a change in rivets, I have to see some new hardware. Because when I go up to a fire escape, I see nothing but original hardware. That hardware is 50 to 75 years old. It's been out in the weather 50 to 75 years, and it's just impossible for not one of those rivets, one of those bolts to be changed in 50 to 75 years. And whenever that occurs, what I have is a fire escape that somebody's been constantly painting, but they've never done anything structurally to it. So now, that makes the entire fire escape pretty much suspect. So now I have to be careful as to what I'm looking at to make sure that the structural now, on especially the major structural connections, are in good order. Thank you for watching our video. Please call us today at 800-649-3333 to discuss your fire escape issue with a live inspector or schedule an inspection in your area today.